Everyone's got an opinion. You should listen to it. You should refine it. But ultimately, it's up to you as a founder to be able to pick a path and share with your consumers a vision for that path. Because people resonate when there is a vision rather than a Frankenstein product that is a series of compromises.
Today, I'm here with Justin Wang, who in 2017 decided that the way we drink water could use an upgrade. Justin left a successful corporate career to tackle an everyday problem all of us face at some point: icky water bottles. He is the co-founder and CEO of LARQ, the company behind the world's first self-cleaning water bottle that it says can eliminate up to 99.9% of harmful bacteria, and is meant to ensure you're not worrying about how clean the water is when you're traveling. What started as a crowdfunded product quickly turned into a multinational brand, earning a spot on Shark Tank, where he walked in with the highest valuation seen in the show's history.
I'm here today to ask for $500,000 for 1% of my company, LARQ.
And most recently, being acquired by BRITA. This is a bucket list pick for many founders. How did the deal come together, and how do you see the brand changing under its ownership?
It just started out from an email, random email we got. I think people sometimes get lost about, oh, I need to get to an exit. I need to have an IPO. There's nothing more attractive, in my opinion, in terms of building yourself as an acquisition target than building a company that is sustainable, building a company that doesn't need to be acquired.
Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. It's a pleasure.
So let's go back to the beginning. Just to share some context, can you walk us through your background, where you grew up, and what shaped your ambitions early on?
In my early days, it was a pretty typical upbringing, playing sports, being outdoors. I was a Boy Scout growing up. So I think very early on, I had a connection with nature, health. Funny enough, one of my first memories was me running into the Pacific Ocean when I was 3 years old. I didn't know how to swim at the time. Crashed into the waves. My parents had to grab me out of the water so that I don't drown. But I had this deep feeling that it was a wonderful experience. So very young, I had this connection, I think, with water and with nature that I think persists today. This appreciation for sustainability and nature kind of ultimately, I think, transformed and ended up with me creating LARQ. Also growing up, was very much inspired to be an entrepreneur by some of my family members. We didn't grow up with a lot. It was a very happy childhood. It was very, very fun. It was a pretty middle class childhood, but it was a middle class childhood that my parents had to work very hard for.
So you're first generation American?
I am, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you, growing up, had the itch to become a founder. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, I definitely did. Not growing up with a lot, it was always, I think, this feeling of trying to do better for your family and trying to do better so that you feel more secure and things like this. So there was definitely a drive to do that. I also had a mentor in my aunt who started her own consulting business probably when I was like around 10 or 12. And that whole process, watching her go through that and ultimately she sold her business to a larger firm. Having that process really, I think, inspired me. But also more importantly, I think made me realize that it was possible. Having a mentor go through that and say, oh, someone like me, someone from my family can actually just, no permission needed. You could just go and do it, right? So I think that made an impression on me.
Yeah.
At a very early age, to want to be an entrepreneur. So that spark was, I think, put there by that interaction. And I didn't do it right away. I took another, 10, 15 years before I made the plunge, but it was planted.
Well, I was going to ask anyway, because before starting the business, you already had a very successful career. You served as president of FOREO, the beauty tech company, and earlier as an investor with LVMH's investment arm, as well as I saw L Catterton, one of the world's top PE firms. How did you decide to walk away from all that to take that leap? Because, people call it golden handcuffs for a reason.
I think it's a good term, golden handcuffs.
I think I was fortunate. One, I had this kind of spark within me that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And I think, two, I was lucky enough that I made that leap fairly early. I was a VP at L Catterton. And, if I stayed on probably much longer, it would have been tougher and tougher, So I think it's also tougher as you get older, if you have family and things like this. So I think I was lucky enough where I made the leap fairly early. But I think that drive within me was always kind of there. I always knew deep down that I wanted to create something. And I wanted to create something and then make an impact through the work that I was doing.
Yeah. Well, tell us what inspired the creation of LARQ. How was the company born? Because there's always a problem that you start with, right?
Yeah. I remember very clearly. It was one day we were living in San Francisco at the time. I was opening up the cabinet and probably like 2 water bottles fell out. And I realized me and my wife had collected something like 6, 8 different water bottles in the cabinet. That was collecting dust, wasn't being used very much. And then all of a sudden this idea popped into my head. Is like, well, why is that? When we looked into it, we realized that, despite the fast-growing reusable water bottle market, all these big major brands emerging, it only made up about 5% of the overall market. The rest, 95%, was made up of single-use plastic, mostly water bottles, being shipped in from places like Fiji or the Alps. And I asked the question, why is that? And what we realized through research was that despite the wide availability of water bottles, it just wasn't meeting people's user needs. And what is that? That came down to, one, access on the go to safe, clean drinking water, right? People don't like the taste of chlorine. People don't like the fact that there's things like PFAS, lead, all sorts of chemicals in our water system, which is well covered. And then 2, people don't love scrubbing the water bottle every day, right? You have to wash it. It gets stinky. And 3, people wanted it in a beautiful package that they were proud to carry around. So design was very important. So LARQ was started from that, realizing that there was a gap between a giant market, $500 million industry in single-use water bottles and what people actually wanted. I don't know if you have the experience of when you reach for a plastic water bottle, you have a tinge of guilt. That's very common. Yeah. But despite that, the conveniences and all those issues I had talked about earlier is what propels people to keep using it, right? So we try to bridge that gap in user experience in delivering a product that makes your water safer, makes your user experience better, and in a package that's designed to be convenient and beautiful.
Right. And then what happened next after you had the great idea? Did you go out and find a co-founder, or what happened?
Had kind of connected with my co-founder, who has a technical background from Caltech, literally weeks before. So maybe it had been brewing in my brain. I didn't realize it, but we connected, and he was developing a unique technology in material science to put UV and other types of filtration into the product. So we kind of came up with the idea of LARQ. It was kind of serendipitous that I met him.
Right.
So I was more of the business side, and he was more of the technical side, innovative side.
So you told him,
product.
This is a problem. I feel like we should team up to address it. And he said, brilliant, because I have a background in UV systems anyway, and this would work out really well. Was that actually what happened, or?
Pretty much. I think we had talked about the applications of UV and various things, from surface disinfection to water, and that might have lodged something in the back of my head, and it was picked up later when I had this moment of insight when kind of cleaning out my cupboards.
Right. So it sounds like you always had a little bit of that entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah.
Even through your corporate career, and then when you landed on what felt like the right idea, you thought, this is the moment. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And from day one, Justin, it sounds like you had a pretty clear vision in mind. What was your response, though, to, let's say, critics who, didn't or perhaps still don't get the appeal of the product? Let's say people who are like, what's wrong with a regular water bottle?
I'll just say most ideas should be challenged. And that process is very much needed, I think, for you to hone your idea, hone your pitch, hone your reasons why and reasons why not, right? I think that process of discovery is very important. So when there were people that were questioning that, it helps you define your product, define your pitch. But honestly, I felt like some of the things we were addressing were pretty universal. So it was apparent through our research that these were the pain points of why. So we were, but you also have to have conviction, right? At the end of the day, you should listen to your critics. You should listen to people's advice. But I think sometimes what you'll find is that, you'll have one choice A, choice B, and you'll find 5 people pulling in one direction and 5 pulling in the other direction. So I think one of the hard things to do as an early stage founder is picking your path, because you could, whether it's the design decision or a color decision or a feature decision, you'll find people that will resonate with it or not, or give you different advice. And, you have to rise above the noise in some ways.
Go with your gut.
Yeah.
Everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah, everyone's got an opinion. You should listen to it. You should refine it. But ultimately, it's up to you as a founder to be able to pick a path and share with your consumers a vision for that path, right? Because people resonate when there is a vision rather than a Frankenstein product that is a series of compromises that is no good for anybody.
Right, exactly. Then you're kind of like, why am I in this anyways?
Right.
Well, some people who didn't really need much convincing were your early Kickstarter backers. LARQ had a record-breaking Kickstarter campaign off the bat, raising $1.4 million, I think I saw, out of a $30,000 goal. A lot of people, though, don't know how much goes into crowdfunding.
Yeah.
What did you learn from this experience? And is there any strategic advice you'd give to folks who are at the early stage of their business now looking to take that same route?
I also really believe in iterating with your potential consumers, right? And understanding what resonates with them, what kind of messaging, and involving them from a very early stage in the product development of the brand, of the product. The funny thing is I remember before the launch of the campaign, we were like, we'd be really happy if it hits 100, 150K. And then end up doing about 10x that, right? So that early validation also gave us more conviction that we're on the right path. But through that process, whether it's Kickstarter or if you're doing something different, I would say I find a lot of value in getting early adopters to give you feedback around the product. But I think it also creates a community around the people with the same issue or the same values, and it creates an early home for the brand, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, Kickstarter is obviously the right tool for maybe something that was hardware or consumer facing. But I think, finding that in other spaces also is a very good approach.
Yeah. And for those who are out there listening who are thinking, I would love to, one can only dream of being able to 10x your goal on Kickstarter. Right. Are there any, kind of practical tips that you would suggest?
I think cultivating that community early. I think one of the things that we did well was even before the launch of the campaign, we created just a landing page, like one single page. And in retrospect, it looked, a little janky, to be honest with you. But we created the page. We gave out the product. We had a render of the product. We had some basic propositions, and we asked people to sign up. And people did. And from that, we created a small community that we kept going back to, asking about price point, value proposition, and things like this. And we were able to get thousands of data points from this, even before we launched a campaign, right? So I think that iterative process. So by the time the campaign launched, we felt very confident the price point it should be at, the key selling points the product should have. So we were really able to refine the initial product and the positioning much more by leveraging that early set of adopters.
So specifically running what marketing, like Facebook ads or things like that, and then also getting people's emails and sending them surveys on what they would like to see?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah,
and not even product photos, but the rendering so that you're not going in.
Yeah.
Wow.
You'd be surprised how people want to be involved, right? They want to be involved. They want to have input. Of course, you can't take everyone's input, but if you are thoughtful about your approach and thoughtful about the type of things that you really need to still have answered, and you involve that community, I think it creates the sense that they're coming along the journey with you. And I think that was very important for our early success and coming out the door with, what was at the time the biggest crowdfunding campaign in the space. Yeah.
Was that the moment that you felt like, okay, this is going to go big?
I think so. I think that gave us more confidence. I think I am someone that is a little bit more reserved, and when it comes to I don't shout our success always from the mountaintops. So I felt like it was a validation, but we also felt like, now we have to deliver. Now instead of producing hundreds of products or thousands, we have to make tens of thousands on the first shipment. So it also brought a sense of pressure.
Right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, I even saw you guys later went back and did a couple more campaigns on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Out of curiosity, why go back there instead of relying on existing funding from the business or your investors? And for that matter, I think I even saw, wasn't it until you waited till year 2 or 3 to take on your first VC investors? I think you said on Shark Tank. With your background and position in the Bay Area, you surely had a good network. So, why wait as well?
Well, I think all the benefits of, we launched our second product, the pitcher, and second generation of the bottle fairly recently. We went back to, the Kickstarter community because we really felt like it was valuable feedback, like I mentioned earlier. It was valuable feedback in the process. We obviously had an audience already, but that feedback loop and access to those early adopters that could give you opinions about the product was still very valuable to us. So that's why we went back. And I think we also wanted to sort of bootstrap the business as far as we could before we raised outside capital.
And also, obviously, hopefully, it lets you hang on to equity for a bit longer, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's another tactic. On a Reddit AMA, ask me anything. I did do my homework. I saw you told other entrepreneurs that your advice when it comes to financing would include the reminders that 1, persistence pays off, and 2, know when to move on to the next conversation, which somewhat contradicts number 1, you said. What specific moments taught you this? Do any stories come to mind?
If I think about the cohort of hardware startups going back to 2018, give or take, we are probably one of the only ones that are still alive or that still exist. So I think hardware is hard.
It's tough.
And it's very tough. So I think we were in a space where you had to be persistent, right? I think all entrepreneurs have to be persistent. And oftentimes is the last one who still has a will to continue that survive and then thrive.
Right.
So in some ways, it's a little bit of a culling of who you could last out long and can make it to the other side in the J curve. And I think that's true for fundraising as well, right? I think one of probably the strongest indicator of success when we're hiring or if investing, I think, is whether or not someone has conviction, has the ability to go the distance despite challenges, because challenges is going to be the norm. Feeling like you might not, make it to the other side of the next round is the norm. So I think persistence is super, super important when it comes to not only fundraising, but working at a startup to starting a startup, and especially in the hardware space.
Is there a certain stretch of time that you could point to as an example of when you really felt this? Your back was against the wall and that you really were just trying to motivate yourself every day to keep rallying?
Yeah. We also ran this business during a very, I would say, volatile economy. A couple of years into it, we had COVID.
Yeah.
And all the things that came along with COVID, the supply chain shortages, and then we had tariffs from the first round of tariffs hit our product. So through all that, especially there was a period during COVID, we really weren't sure if we were able to continue. But lucky enough, I think we were able to manage the supply chain issues. We were able to manage some of the issues that came from, just all the businesses we're dealing with at the time, and ultimately made it to the other side, right? But that was in large part, I think, to, having a team that was resilient, knowing that the team looks at a problem, instead of saying, woe is me, or, okay, what can we do about this? I think we really had a team that were very focused on problem solution, right? When we see a problem, we digest it and we try to come up with a solution.
So there was a point during, was it COVID, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
That you were worried about even just getting through it and whether your business would survive.
Right.
As did many businesses, obviously. It was like an existential crisis for so many people, right? And I heard a lot of Darwinian analogies at that time, especially coming out of Silicon Valley. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I was going to ask later on about, what was one of the toughest moments? Would you characterize this as one of them?
Definitely one of them, because I think not only we had just launched at, I think it was Bloomingdale's at the time, and then all of a sudden, we had lockdowns, and then we weren't sure if we were able to get product from our factories, and then all of a sudden we swung from that perspective to you couldn't book a container ship because the freight, the backup at Long Beach really had impact. So that meant carrying more capital on your balance sheet, on your supply chain, had to carry more assets.
Yep.
And as a small business, as a, kind of a Series A founded business at that time, we weren't really sure how much we could stretch our dollars.
Yeah.
So I remember very distinctly having a conversation with our head of finance and my co-founder about, how many months do we have left? That kind of conversation, right? That's
What's the runway here?
Yeah, what's in runway there, right?
Yeah.
I think at the time it was maybe less than half a year.
How did that feel at that point?
We were 3 or 4 years into it. It felt very much like having my life's work maybe almost come to an end at that point. But we also knew that, like I said earlier, we had a resilient team and we had good investors and things like this that we would partner with, and things eased up. We got a little bit lucky as well. So things fell into place, and, the economy kept humming along, and, we were able to be successful on the other side.
Yeah. So, just to your point, persisting.
Yeah.
Despite the circumstances. And it sounds like you were able to work it out to bring your shipments in still.
Yes.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable though. I mean, you talk about peaks and valleys, right? In entrepreneurship, yeah. That's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
It's funny because I know you and I were just speaking about how we both know Touchland's founder. And she told us as well that during COVID, despite what everyone thinks about her business being, a COVID boom business, she was left without product for a year. So I can't even imagine what it was like for folks like you who were scrambling behind the scenes at this time. But, you've come out on the other end. I want to ask you as well, when it comes down to financing, just to stay on that for a moment, no one goes through this process without rejection, right? How did you navigate any kind of setbacks on that? Did you employ a specific mindset? And, was it like 5-second funeral, that kind of thing? How did you go out and bear those challenges?
You have to be able to take rejection and move on. I think I had this running list of potential investors that got to be over 100 to close our Series A. So it took 100 conversations to close our Series A, right? So, but in retrospect, when we raised the next round, I took that as a sense of possibility. I have to get through 100 no's if the right partner comes along, right? I should get through 100 no's, right? At the end of the day. So I think for me, we took that as a sense of pride, right? Like, even though, hard work is hard and it was hard to get investors at the time, we made it to the other side. It took 100 tries, but we made it. That means we could make it through anything.
Right.
100 tries.
Badge of honor, right?
Right. It's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be resilient. You also have to, like as you mentioned earlier, you have to also know when to move on.
Yeah.
If people don't see your vision, and, you have to work with people that understand what you're trying to do and can get behind you in good times and in bad.
So that was kind of your mindset, was on to the next then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Justin, you famously went on Shark Tank in 2021 and managed to snag a deal at the time, despite having the highest valuation ever seen on the show. In fact, I remember when you walked in, you made the ask and the investors first burst out laughing.
Right.
Did you expect that?
I did not expect them to laugh at me. I did expect some resistance. And I think we were a little bit bigger by the time we were on the show. And we thought about, well, what's our pitch going to be? What's our ask going to be? I was a huge fan of the show, huge fan of the Sharks. We decided to lean into our authenticity, which is we were a little bit bigger. I came from, we were venture backed at the time already. So we wanted to go out and just go ahead and ask for the biggest deal. What's the worst thing that could happen? But I did not plan on the fact that they would laugh at me. So that made things a little tense and a little nervous, but we were able to, still have a good and successful outcome as a result.
Well, I noticed that you remain very composed.
Yeah.
What is your advice to other young founders to kind of keep calm and carry on as they prepare to pitch investors in that kind of way?
Obviously, Shark Tank's a little bit of entertainment as well. So it's not exactly the same as pitching VC. But I think what I did take away from that was you should be super prepared. You should know your numbers. You should know your business really well and be ready to answer tough questions. But I think you should also be authentic, as in, if you don't have this, I start in the basement story, don't try to lean into that, right? If you lean into your strength, be authentic about where you come from, because people see that, and people see the authenticity, and that story will resonate, not only with the sharks, right, but also with investors and things like this. I think a lot of times people try to put themselves into a mold that works.
Yeah.
And that inauthenticity or the lack of authenticity comes through. So I think having conviction around where you're coming from, where your business is really going, what your really true vision is.
Exactly, especially that shared vision, because you want to be in alignment, because it's almost like a marriage, isn't it, when you're getting into bed with an investor?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is like certainly a relationship, if not a marriage.
So there's no point to BS, basically. Just, I think what you're saying is so true. There's a lot of people that would be tempted to just go along with whatever it seems like they want because they want to get the deal, right? Which to some degree is understandable. But you're saying, obviously, be reasonable about it.
Because I think it all comes out in diligence, where it will come out in the way you present it. If you don't really believe in it, and if you're just trying to mold your story to a pitch, I think what you should do is mold the pitch to your story, what you really have conviction under, right? If we all know in the investment space, it's one hot thing to another. Yeah. It could be AI today, it could be hardware next day, it could be, something else, right? Recurring revenue the next day. And that up and down is always going to be there. So of course you have to understand the environment, but I think you should be true to your North Star, and that's how you're going to navigate like rough seas.
Are there any kind of rituals that you have before a big event like that to maybe just get in the zone? Like you see things like Michael Phelps before he goes out to the pool, he'll have his headphones on and he's like in the zone. Like, is there anything that you like to do before you go out and pitch to investors?
I do a little meditation. I like to work out. So, getting a good workout in beforehand. The other thing is I have a very close relationship with my wife, and, I actually talk to her quite a bit about, big events and big pitches, or, Shark Tank. She was my practice judge. And, just going through that with her and getting, so I think that's part of my ritual, as well as talking to people I trust.
Yeah.
So I think having a group of people that you trust and respect, it could be a partner, it could be, people just your friends. I think that's also very important.
And how did you work to keep costs as low as possible throughout these early stages? Because I imagine that was a priority, especially in the beginning.
We wanted to deliver a good product, a quality product. So obviously keeping costs at a reasonable amount helps with the addressable market size. So it was more important that we found a manufacturing partner that could do it, or that could do it to our quality and specifications, than it was to absolutely keep the lowest cost. So there was always a little bit of a balance between those two things.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a premium product as well. It's not like something you want to skimp.
Exactly.
Let's talk about retail and distribution, because you are in Best Buy Canada, and I've seen your product on Williams-Sonoma. You recently expanded into Target and are looking to launch on Apple.com. Dream partners for entrepreneurs. How did you manage to secure these collaborations? Can you kind of talk us through the process broadly?
We started on D2C, right? So that's the typical playbook now. You start online, and then we went to trade shows to talk to buyers. And in the beginning, we worked with more boutique buyers. We're in New York MoMA as one of our earliest partners on the retail side. And really through that process, you kind of learn what works in retail, what doesn't work in retail. Because retail is very taxing, both in terms of the people that you need, in terms of the supply chain and the inventory you have to keep. So I think we learned a lot over the years to be ready for a partner like a Target, like a Best Buy, and Apple.
What kind of things do you feel like you need to have in place?
I think knowing what kind of product resonate with what partner, and not every product is right for every partner. Mm-hmm. So we only have certain products at an Apple that may not be at a Target, and that buyers and that consumer is a little bit different, right? So just because a big name partner comes along, I don't think you should always say yes very early. I think you should be ready for that partnership as an organization as well, right? So because the supply chain terms, the inventory terms, the margin terms are all going to be taxing on the organization, right? More inventory, margins are different, and you don't control the whole experience like you do on D2C. So you have to have a field team go into Target and literally check every store, are they in stock? And they're always not always in stock, right? So all of this requires a team of people, right? So oftentimes I've seen brands get just decimated by going to retail too early because it is it's a more complex process that you have to manage.
So having a field team in place is one of your suggestions for anyone looking to go into retail.
Mm-hmm.
And are there any other things that you really felt like gave you that leg up when you were pitching these retailers and distributors?
Yeah, I think we had a natural advantage in that we have innovative products in a category that was often growing for our partners. So I think fundamentally, if you have an innovative product that we didn't have many other products in this category, that was very helpful in pitching to our partners. And I think also building the brand to a certain size in D2C and your own community to a certain size, I think is also helpful in that you're ready for 1,000 doors with someone by the time that opportunity comes along.
It sounds like that's also one really key piece of advice that's like underpinned your journey is ensuring that you're truly ready and not going too fast. Because it's tempting, obviously, to try to go after all the big guys as soon as you've got a product and you see that people like it, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you are really conscious about pacing yourself and being prepared.
Yeah, I think that experience probably comes a little bit from being an investor at one point and seeing some of investments, especially venture-backed consumer investments can lose sight of their margins, lose sight of their, efficiency as an organization, and overstretch themselves to go after every single opportunity. So I think we've seen some very famous consumer brands have a very, hot start and burn out. So I think it's good to know that at the end of the day, it's I would say it's a marathon and not a sprint. So.
What does it really take to succeed in retail even after you've landed these channels? Because I often hear founders complain that not enough people talk about that they see that they've landed it and then they think that's the end, but obviously it's not.
Yeah, I think it's all about your connection with your consumer and sell-through, right? And that's a different way of saying once you're on the shelf, are you moving with enough velocity to make your buyer happy, to make that category happy? And ultimately, I think that is a question whether or not you can make your consumer happy if you have a good product market fit for that, not only with your D2C customers, but for the customer that a retail partner might have, right? So I think that's very important, what category or how you're presented. We turned down a lot of opportunities that it was going to be, we'll put your product on, the bottom shelf or on this random location. Even though it was a big, maybe buy-in opportunity, right. We knew that our product required a little more education, a little more understanding of what the product is doing. So at the end of the day, we only decided to partner with people that would give us that visual space to be able to be successful.
Yeah, so you actually even walked away from some of these opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be discerning.
You have to be discerning. I think you also have to know, exactly that product market fit with that partner, with that space. Is that going to do the thing that you think it will do? And it's a little bit of art, obviously.
That's a great advice, to other entrepreneurs who might be looking to avoid any kind of pitfalls, right?
Yeah.
You shared one of the toughest challenges you faced as a founder during COVID and what you learned from it. But I was also going to ask about tariffs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that has been roiling, the global economy recently. What has that experience been like for you dealing with tariffs?
I've learned that the supply chain is very complex. To put together our product, there's probably over 50 pieces coming from 30 different suppliers across 10 plus countries. And as a relatively small, I would still consider ourselves a small, medium-sized business. We're not an Apple. Right. We don't really get to dictate if a manufacturing partner is located in Asia or in Mexico or in the US, we are usually a taker of volumes, as in a taker of the capacity of a factory. And sometimes that might mean 10% of a factory's, 15% of a factory's capacity. So we don't get to say, oh, we are just going to build a factory from day one in the US or in Mexico or wherever else. So what we cared about in the beginning is quality, the ability to deliver an innovative product on time and at a reasonable cost. So we could begin to build sort of a new market, right? We have a vision for this sustainable and healthier hydration future, and it requires new products. So I think what people don't realize is that small businesses are especially hurt with tariffs that hard to plan, and I think it will have an impact on innovation and things like this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I've covered recently is, the ways that small businesses try to scramble here in LA to get around tariffs, like front loading, moving up their product orders. Did you have to employ some of those kind of tactics as well, or were you kind of also in a bit of a crisis mode as a lot of other businesses were?
Yeah, I think this is probably our fourth crisis mode. So at some point, it just doesn't become a crisis. It's just
the norm.
The norm. So we felt very confident going into it that we had the team that has been through COVID, it's been through fundraisings, it's been through various external shocks, price shocks to everything else that we felt like, okay, well, this is not a great experience, but we'll find a way to navigate it. So we are in the process of diversifying our supply chain from, today we're 100% sourcing from China to more broad-based sourcing strategy. Actually, with some of it even coming back to the US as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that's music to some people's ears, I think.
Yeah.
What was one of the best days in the history of the company for you?
I think there was only 4 or 5 people on the team at the time. And we were in the process of launching, a crowdfunding campaign. And people were just in the office. We were going to start the campaign at like 7 a.m. People were in the office at 5 in the morning, just getting things ready. And then there was this moment where like everyone had a cup of coffee in front of them. It was how people were tired from having stayed up the night before and getting everything ready. But at the same time, people were super energized, right? There was this sense of calm before the storm, that people were excited, that there was a buzz of possibility for the future. And then a few hours later, we had, thousands of orders come in, and raised over, obviously, one of the biggest crowdfunding campaigns. And that morning, from that calm before the storm to that crazy kind of out of the gate experience, I think that was one of the best experiences.
Yeah. I was going to say I could name a few other great days for your company for you, but that's a really lovely one.
Yeah.
During those kind of so-called crisis periods that you mentioned, did you ever consider throwing in the towel and going back to corporate life? Because I have to say, it's so striking, right? Because you came from the investment world, this kind of high-flying, white-collar job, and, also the luxury space with LVMH. Did you, at any point, sitting there, you have to be really scrappy. There's like not anyone else to do some of the things that maybe you don't want to do in startup life. It couldn't be more different, I think. Think about, maybe this isn't for me, or did you absolutely love it?
I think I loved the totality of experience, but I certainly didn't love every moment.
Right.
And I would be lying if I said I was always confident that this is the right choice. The truth is there were those moments where you question yourself, right? Is my career moving the right way? Was this the right choice? But I think at the end of the day, you have to gather yourself up and, take another step. Like I said earlier, right? The next step is the most important. So I think it's fine to have those moments of doubt, and we're only human for having it. But I think the important thing is after that moment of doubt, can you take the next step?
What is the single biggest pain point or challenge you're working on right now? Would it be the tariff situation?
I think so. I think the tariffs is certainly up there.
Is it 50% right now on you guys, or no? What's the rate that you're dealing with?
It's in the range of 30 to about 55%. Okay. Yeah, so in the range of that.
LARQ is a fairly lean team of 50 employees. What do you value most when it comes to building a team? Is there anything you particularly like to ask, let's say, when hiring?
It's very important to hire people who are compatible with the startup experience. I think oftentimes startups are kind of glorified, I think, in media or people's perception, right? I want to work for a startup that is growing at 1,000%. What people don't know is that, 99% of the startups fail. And oftentimes it's a grind. So I think you have to find people who are there for the right reasons and who can have longevity with the company, right? So I actually like to ask a question like, I like to turn it around on people and have them ask me really anything they want. Maybe what is the worst part of the company? And I try to be very transparent. And if I talked about the hard days and sometimes the tough hours, but I also give them the good side, which is you really do have this sense of accomplishment. You build a sense of camaraderie with your team. And if you want to get something done, you join a startup. So I think fit is a two-way street. And so we're not only looking for, are you the right fit for our organization? I also want to make sure our organization is the right fit for the candidate or the team member that is joining. Because oftentimes an interview feels like a very one-way conversation, right? They're pitching you on them. I want to make sure that they have all the information to make the right choice. I'd rather have them drop out of the process than realize they were in the wrong place 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later.
Right. It sounds like you think long-term quite a lot. I really think that's like your investor side coming out.
Maybe.
LARQ has been applauded for walking the walk when it comes to doing business for good. You guys are known for devoting 1% of revenue to your charity partner, 1% for the planet. Can you talk us through the decision to make that commitment? Because I'm curious if you got any pushback from stakeholders and if it was tough to make that call.
No, I don't think it was tough to make that call. From the very beginning, we're a very mission-driven company, both in our product, but also in the space that we're trying to tackle. So for us, it made a lot of sense to partner up with some of our charity partners that you mentioned, along with many others over the years, to do something positive, right? And whether that was to build wells with Wellware in places in East Africa, or with Charity Water, we really try to have a mentality of like we're kind of in this together, and the product only does so much, right? That if we could build an organization that can also sponsor some of these great initiatives, that's what we also want to do.
So I am a Reddit lurker, and I've seen that you personally answer questions from time to time from some of your customers on the LARQ photo subreddit. Is that right? Is that actually you?
That is actually me, actually.
What made
I am a lurker as well.
Yeah, I want to start doing that. And how have you found the experience?
To be honest, that's maybe the most public forum. But in the early days, I was actually answering tickets on our customer care link, email as well. They may not have known it was me, but I like reading. I still read every review that gets posted. I still go through tickets. I still look at Reddit or Twitter or social media comments. I really like the fact that in this day and age, as the CEO of a company, you could still have ground truth, right? And for me, there's nothing more important than ground truth, and that comes from the customer, right? So I'll take every opportunity where I could speak with a customer directly or understand their pain point more directly. I think it doesn't get any better than that in terms of having the right information to make decisions for your organization, right? So what is ground truth, right? That's also talking to people who may not directly report into you. So we try to have a flat organization as well. And I think that is, and that also means all the way down to the customer. So for me, that's sometimes jumping on Reddit or on Twitter or on, social media to understand what's really happening.
Yeah, I imagine it also gives you a good gauge of demand and like ideas for features and things like that.
Yeah.
When you say also talking to people that don't report directly to you, do you mean like you also will try to just do listening sessions internally with folks that might not have access to you all the time?
It's not a huge organization, so it's still easy to do that, but anyone could email me, anyone could Slack me and schedule a time to chat,
Yeah.
and so it's probably a little more, it's pretty fluid given that we're not a big organization. It's not very structured. So we just have a culture where everyone is very approachable.
Well, Justin, it's been just over a year since LARQ was acquired by BRITA, a huge milestone in its journey. So big congrats.
Thank you.
This is a bucket list tick for many founders. How did the deal come together, and how do you see the brand changing under its ownership?
Yeah, we felt very fortunate to have partnered up with BRITA, but like all good relationships, including my co-founder, it just started out from an random email we got from their corporate development team to just chat. And then from that very first meeting in Germany, we realized that even though the organizations are of very different size, coming from different countries, we had a very similar vision for the future, which is to make hydration better for the planet, better for people, from a sustainability, from a health perspective. So we really spoke the same language. And it was very apparent that there would be a lot of synergies, a lot of opportunities, right, in this space to work on something together. So over the course of a long journey that took almost a year, we ended up closing a deal, and we were purchased by BRITA SC, and we've been there for a couple of years now, and it's been a really great journey, and I feel like it has really provided a foundation for the next chapter for LARQ. Yeah, even allowing us to think about things even further out. BRITA is a family business, multi-generational family business, and I think that suits us very well in terms of our longer term goals and in years and decades rather than in the next quarterly report, right? So I think I really appreciate that about that approach. I think I would have been happy to keep running LARQ, but having an opportunity to partner with someone that could bring so much more resources and distribution and technology to the table, I think really advances our vision for the future. And I'm really excited for LARQ's next 10 years. I think it will be even more exciting than the first.
If we were to sit down again in 10 years, where would you want to see yourself and LARQ?
I think 10 years, we have a vision for LARQ where we are the go-to brand and product line if you're thinking about healthy and sustainable hydration. And that might span from something on the go, something in the kitchen, or a house. I have this obsession that we shouldn't ship water around the world in plastic containers. So I'm also hoping that we've taken the next step in that journey of kind of making the world see that as well, and by providing products that make that journey easier as well. So I think we still have a long way to go, but I think in 10 years we'll be much further along that goal.
Can you give a hint as to what that vision entails?
I think the bottle form factor or the pitcher form factor, that's a couple of ways to reach that customer. But what we've learned over the years is that, people, drink water and hydrate in very many different ways. So we want to meet that consumer. That's our general strategy, right? We want to meet the consumer where they have a need rather than say, wag our fingers at them and say, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. We believe the product should come through the consumer, right? We should develop a product that makes things easier and makes things more straightforward. So whether that's, something that's installed into your sink or in your fridge or in your home, or on the go.
Maybe LARQ taps, LARQ
Exactly.
faucets, LARQ drinking fountains, whatever it may be. Yeah.
So that that decision becomes second nature and easy.
I'd like to ask briefly about competition. A lot of people don't know this, but BRITA here in the US is actually run by a different company than the one that you're owned by, Clorox. Because BRITA SC, the German company that came up with the eponymous water filters we all know today, actually sold the rights, right, to the BRITA brand in North and South America to Clorox in 1988. Given that dynamic, how does this impact LARQ's strategy and operations within these markets? Because it's essentially BRITA versus BRITA, right? And you're right there.
First, I think BRITA is a great brand. Even in the U.S. With under Clorox, I think they provide a great product. I think LARQ's vision goes beyond the countertop pitcher. We're innovative by nature. We're now owned by BRITA, Germany, BRITA SE. Obviously, there's some overlap in the products that we do and everything. But at the end of the day, I think our vision is much more using innovative technology and new product designs and new feature designs to continue to bridge that gap between what people get out of single use and what people don't get out of more sustainable, reusable options. Right. So our goal is to keep bridging that gap with technology and innovation. And I think BRITA is a very important step in that direction. But I think we see a lot more opportunities to innovate. So we don't really see BRITA as, we have to take market share. I think the market share that we're trying to go after is this, $500 billion single-use water bottle market globally.
Right.
And that market is the size of, that's about the GDP of Thailand.
Right.
Or something like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very mission driven of you, obviously, to say. It's also been seen that, LARQ, this acquisition could be obviously a key way for BRITA SE to really dominate the North American market. Mm-hmm. And, you're a key weapon in that arsenal. So I don't know if you see that as well. Just, talking roadmap in the near to midterm, anything you can tease in regard to potential expansions geographically or product roadmap or things like that?
We're looking at, so BRITA SE has a very interesting set of, they were the original innovators of this space, right? So I think if for the non-North American listener, you probably are more familiar with their under the sink filters, with their bottles, with other types of filtration technology that they have. They are actually in cafes and they have a B2B business as well. So looking at that innovation portfolio that goes deep in filtration, that goes deep into some of these spaces, I think our product team and our engineering team is having, a really good time going through that and seeing, okay, we could build upon that foundation, the set of patents and technology and laboratory work, and be able to productize all of these technologies for the North American market, adapt it for the North American market. So that's one thing that we're just super excited about, is access to this wealth of R&D and knowledge, and team that we didn't have or didn't have the scale for before. I think the other thing that there's a lot of synergies, and you'll see this coming along this year, is that, they haven't done too much in the bottle space. So I think LARQ is acting as a little bit of a bottle innovation hub globally for BRITA SE, where in this kind of space, on-the-go space, we have a lot more experience. In the D2C space, we have a lot more experience. So I think we'll see that being leveraged into the BRITA brand and BRITA family of products more and more in the future as well.
And just to follow up on something you said earlier, you said that this whole deal came together through a simple cold email, was it?
Yeah.
From whose side? From yours or from theirs?
We got an email from Hans Michael, their head of corporate development, back in the December of 2022. Yeah, 2022. So shout out to Hans Michael. Thanks for sending us that email.
Wow, that must have been a dream come true.
But we did get, emails from different investors or other corporate partners from time to time.
To potentially acquire you?
Or we're just interested in have a chat. So, you never know where these conversations could go. But obviously we're going to take it because it was BRITA.
Yeah.
I think is what happens after that first conversation. The fit, the vision for the future, the strategic fit into the company. Their lack of presence in North America, as you mentioned before. I think those things really clicked after the first conversation.
Yeah. I saw also the online to offline retail mix as well. It's very complementary.
It's very complementary.
All right, this brings me to a segment we are calling What It Takes, where an audience member and fellow entrepreneur gets to ask for advice and hear more on what it takes to get where you are. So today, Isabella, a CPG founder based in San Francisco, asks, LARQ's acquisition by BRITA is a major milestone. What were some of the important lessons you learned navigating this process, from initial conversations to closing the deal? And what advice would you give to founders thinking long-term about strategic exits?
It's good to have the outcome in mind when you start, right? Your vision board or your vision for the future, because I think having that North Star, whatever it is for you as an entrepreneur, is very important, because I think it will impact all the little things that you don't think about every day. But at the same time, I think people sometimes get lost about, I need to get to an exit. I need to have an IPO. I need to, and that becomes all consuming, where I need to build it this way. So this potential customer might come or this potential acquirer might come. So as well, it's good to have that vision for the future. I think what's more important is that you should build a company that you're proud of. You should build a company that's sustainable. Because there's nothing more attractive, in my opinion, in terms of building yourself as a acquisition target than building a company that is sustainable. That is building a company that doesn't need to be acquired. Right. So I think it's important to not get lost in that as well. It's like, exactly how do I build this so this company will buy it, right? So I think building a sustainable company that you feel like is addressing the problems in your segment, and just putting one foot in front of the other. And then one day, I think what you'll see is that you've built something hopefully incredible that many people will want to acquire. And that's not necessarily a function of trying to be something that you're not, right? So I think you have to be true to your strategy, your vision, and your execution. And that stuff will come, in my opinion.
So stick to the core fundamentals and don't try too hard.
Don't try too hard.
Yeah. I feel like this is also another big thing for you as well that you've really stayed true to, sounds like, throughout your journey. All right, we're going to do a quick rapid fire round just to wrap up. It's just 2 minutes, and just say whatever comes to mind. Don't think.
Okay.
What is your pet peeve in the workplace?
You should bring your full self to work.
That's like the new parent in you speaking, I feel like. What? That's like the parent in you speaking.
Yeah.
How many hours of sleep do you get every night?
At least 7. No.
What's something you do to manage stress?
Working out, talking to my wife.
If you go back and give yourself advice in your 20s, what would you tell yourself?
Stay true to your dreams. Things will work out. Yeah.
Justin, thank you so much for being here for this conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Behind the Business. For more stories on business and leadership, hit subscribe.